Good day, everyone. I am Vladimir Turingan, and I am here with me, my friend, classmate, and colleague, Jericho Villamin, and we are students of Doctor of Philosophy in English Language Education from Tarlac State University. And today, it's our pleasure and an honor to be here with you. And as teachers and lovers of poetry, we have long been fascinated by the intricate dance between form and meaning in literature. So, where every word and rhythm resonates with deeper truths. So, today, we will take you on a journey into the heart of one of John Keats' most celebrated works, Ode to a Nightingale. I hope that everybody is familiar with this. So, our topic for today will be all about harmonizing form and meaning, a multi-level stylistic analysis of John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale. And allow me to share my screen so that everybody could watch and see the presentation. So that's me, and this is Jericho. Okay, so again, we are going to talk about harmonizing form and meaning, a multi-level stylistic analysis of John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale. So first, let me pose this question. So how does a poem or poem transcend more words on a page to become a living and a breathing experience? Basically and actually, this is precisely what Keats achieved in Ode to a Nightingale. This is a masterpiece that not only captivates with its beauty, but also challenges us to reflect on the ephemeral nature of life, art, and human desire. So the significance of this topic lies in its interdisciplinary potential by looking into Keats' poetic form, linguistic features, and symbolic imagery. So we are going to uncover how form and meaning intertwine to create emotional and intellectual resonance. And also, we are going to achieve the following objectives. First one is we are going to examine key themes such as mortality, transcendence, and the tension between the ideal and the real. The second one, we are going to explore how Keats used sound patterns, meter, and structure to reflect the poem's emotional depth. And finally, we're going to identify gaps in current literature, particularly in how stylistics devices are linked to reader engagement. Okay, so let me introduce first who is John Keats. So he was born on October 31, 1975 in London, England. Unfortunately, he died on February 23, 1821 in Rome. So he was an English romantic lyric poet who devoted his short life to the perfection of a poetry marked by a vivid imagery, great sensuous appeal, and an attempt to express a philosophy through classical legend. So let us begin by immersing ourselves in Keats' world, where the song of a nightingale becomes a timeless metaphor for our shared human experience. Okay, so I'll be focusing on Ode to a Nightingale, a masterpiece of the Romantic period. Okay, allow me first to dig deeper and explain and have like a recap what is Ode to a Nightingale all about. So in this, John Keats explored themes of mortality, beauty, and the desire for escape. So, inspired by the Nightingale song, the speaker contemplates the contrast between the bird's seemingly immortal beauty and the inevitable suffering of human life. So, the poem opens with the speaker feeling drowsy and enchanted by the Nightingale song, which seems to transport him to a different realm, free from human pain and sorrow. Longing for an escape from life's struggles, he imagines fleeing into the forest with the bird, hoping to experience the nightingale's untroubled existence. As the poem progresses, Keats reflects on the nature of art and beauty, questioning if such transcendence is sustainable or merely a fleeting illusion. By the end, the nightingale song fades, leaving the speaker alone, uncertain if his experience was real or a dream. So the poem ultimately underscored the tension between the transient nature of human life and the seemingly eternal beauty of nature. So these are the important points of the poems. The first one is transience versus immortality. So in this, Keats contrasted human mortality with the Nightingale song, which symbolizes eternal beauty and nature's unchanging aspects. So this theme is central, reflecting the Romantic era's fascination with the ephemeral and the sublime. The second one is escape from reality. So the speaker yearns to leave behind the world's suffering, illness, and death. The Nightingale song represents an ideal escape, inviting the poem or the poet to a space untouched by time or decay. The third one is beauty and art as consolation. So Keats looked into the power of art and beauty to offer comfort amid suffering. So he wondered if poetry and music, like the Nightingale song, can provide a true refuge from life's harsh realities. The fourth one is dream versus reality. So in the closing lines, if you would notice, the speaker questions the nature of experience, symbolizing the romantic preoccupation with dreams and altered states of consciousness. This reflects the uncertain boundary between reality and the imagined. The next one is symbolism of the nightingale. So the nightingale is a symbol of pure or purity, timeless beauty, and contrast with the human experience, which is marked by hardship and impermanence. And finally, romantic ideals. So Keats captured the romantic ideals of nature, emotion, and the sublime, placing intense feelings and nature's beauty at the forefront. And we are going to talk about the characteristics of romantic literature. So basically, romantic literature is marked by six primary characteristics: celebration of nature, focus on the individual and spirituality, celebration of isolation, melancholy, interest in the common man, idealization of women, and personification and pathetic policy. So let's talk about first the celebration of nature. So romantic writers saw nature as a teacher and a source of infinite beauty. So romantic writers celebrated nature as a profound teacher and an endless source of beauty, seeing it as a guide to understanding life's mysteries and truths. They believe that nature possesses wisdom beyond human comprehension, offering solace, inspiration, and insight into both the human spirit and the divine. So in nature, they found a refuge from the mechanized, industrialized world, a place where they could reconnect with pure emotions, imagination, and intuition. So what does research say about it? According to Gupta 2021, so he examined the interaction between nature and self in Ode to a Nightingale. So it revealed that Keats' depiction of the nightingale symbolized a dual process of connection to nature and escape from self. Gupta's thematic analysis found that nature was a conduit for imploring harmony and discord with oneself. So the example from the poem is this part. So as you can see, it is a through envy of thy happy lot. Okay, so if you're going to read it, this is the example of a celebration of nature. The second one is celebration of isolation and melancholy. So melancholy is a key feature of many works of romanticism, usually seen as a reaction to inevitable failure. So this sense of longing and sorrow allowed individuals to connect with their own depths, exploring the mysteries of existence and the intensity of personal experience. Isolation, particularly whether self-imposed or circumstantial, became a space for profound reflection and creativity, and it allows romantic writers to seek meaning beyond the material world. So what does research say about it? According to Robinson, so his study concentrated on the melancholic tone as an element of romantic escapism in Ode to a Nightingale. He interpreted melancholy as a response to the limitations of earthly experiences. Robinson's tonal analysis revealed that the poem's melancholic language expressed Keats' awareness of the constraints of escape, anchoring the theme of escapism in a sense of longing. And if we would go back to the poem, this is the example. This is the part wherein we will be able to understand what is celebration of isolation and melancholy. And then interest in the common man. So use of overly stylized language and references to classical works in favor of emotional imagery conveyed in simple and elegant language. So romanticism marks a shift in literature's focus from aristocratic subjects and classical references to the lives and emotions of the common man. So, Romanticism portrayed with directness and emotional depth. Rather than relying on the formal stylized rather language and that characterized earlier literature, romantic writers embraced simple, elegant language to convey the beauty, struggles, and dignity of everyday life. So, by using accessible language and vivid emotional imagery, they brought forth the inner worlds of ordinary individuals, celebrating their hopes, fears, and resilience. So, what does this say about it? Thompson focused on affective expression, analyzing how the poem's structure influenced its emotional depth. Thompson's affective analysis underscored how the rhythmic and structural choices with the stanzas echoed the emotional oscillation between despair and hope. So the study advocated for further investigation into affective expression in romantic poetry to elucidate how structural elements shape tone and emotional resonance. So again, if you would go back to the poem, here is the example wherein you will be able to see this part. This is the example of interest in the common man. And at this time, Jerica Villamin, my friend and classmate, would be discussing Ode to a Nightingale and Keats' quest for a lasting legacy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vladimir Turingan, for that insightful discussion on the form of John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale and its characteristics as a romantic poetry. And let me now have also my lecture, and I will start with a brief history of the Nobel Peace Prize. So, have you ever wondered how the Nobel Peace Prize became the Nobel Peace Prize that we know today? And according to what I have read, no, Nobel Peace Prize started when newspapers mistakenly published the name of Nobel in their obituary page. And after that news came out, people began celebrating his death because they associated Nobel with destructive inventions, just like the dynamite, which destroyed our environment. And upon hearing those reactions from the public, Nobel decided to use his money to change this legacy, to change his negative legacy into positive one. And that's why he used his money in giving um, people prizes, people who promote peace in society. And with that, Nobel was able to change his legacy. And now we know him because of the Nobel Peace Prize. And let me relate that to my presentation in this video. Dr. Turingan focused on the form of Ode to a Nightingale, but as for my part, I will be focusing on the meaning and interpretation of this poem and how did John Keats use this poem in achieving a lasting legacy, just like Alfred Nobel. So stylistics, a subdiscipline of linguistics, focuses on the analysis of literary style and its effects on interpretation. Altic 2019 emphasizes the role of scholars in navigating the complexities of literary texts, arguing for an adventurous spirit in literary criticism. Armstrong 2019 discusses the radical aesthetic, highlighting how stylistic choices reflect ideological positions in literature. So after a thorough analysis on the form of Keats' Ode to a Nightingale, we will now employ stylistics, which will deal with the relationship between the style used by the author and how it affects the interpretation of readers on its meaning. As mentioned a while back, no, romantic literature emphasizes and celebrates melancholy as a response to inevitable failure. Chapman 2019 explored into Keats exploration of impermanence and a longing for the eternal, focusing on how the poet reconciled these themes through language and metaphor. Chapman's close reading highlighted Keats' use of symbolism to juxtapose the ephemeral nature of life with a desire for transcendence. So, as individuals, one of the inevitable realities in life is death. In Keats' Ode to a Nightingale, we can see how Keats reflects on death and how he aspired for eternal things. He felt sad to the reality that mortal man cannot live forever, thus expressing his strong desire to live eternally. So we have here an stanza from the poem of John Keats, and let me read this one. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem became a sod. So as per my understanding, Keats tried to see death in a positive perspective, thus saying that he called it with so many soft names, just like um, to seize upon the midnight and pouring forth my soul. He made this in order to make death appear more palatable, since no matter what he do, he will never avoid death. So I think um, we can see how he felt melancholic about death. He mentioned it many times in this stanza. Requiem, in fact, is a word Catholics use to refer to the Mass celebrated during one's funeral. Another one. Thou was not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generations tread thee down. So in this stanza, we can see how Keats envied the nightingale for being immortal. The nightingale is considered immortal in the seventh stanza of Ode to a Nightingale because in literature, nightingale symbolizes enduring art and the eternal beauty of nature. So it is not a literal immortality that we know. So Pride 2020 explored the subtle political undertones in Keats' escapist tendencies, presenting his desire to retreat as a quiet resistance to the socio-political constraints of his time. By employing a cultural criticism approach, Fry revealed how Keats' longing for escape implicitly challenged societal expectations, positioning the poem as both a retreat and a critique of restrictive norms. Fry's research invited comparative studies with other poets' responses to social pressures, which could offer a broader understanding of the era's political escapism. So like other literary pieces which challenge the societal norms of the time, they were written just like Rizal's Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo in the Philippines, challenging the Spanish colonial rule in the country. And we also have Stowie's Uncle Tom's Cabin, which challenges the existing slavery of the time. Fry interprets Keats' Ode to the Nightingale as a form of resistance against the social and political norms that govern the society in his time. Fry sees the poem as Keats' aspiration for a better world, trying to transcend reality and imagining a utopia, a perfect world, or at least somewhat better. With this, Fry recommends conducting studies that will compare the works of Keats and other poets to understand how they react to the socio-political turmoil they had experienced and how they use literature to escape the bitter reality of the world they are in. So in this research, we can say that we can use literature in order to bring change in the socio-political landscape of the society we are living in. According to Lee, Keats' reflection on immortality to romantic notions of legacy, exploring how the poet's treatment of the theme positioned him within a broader romantic discourse on poetic legacy. Through an intertextual analysis, Lee showed that Keats' engagement with immortality highlighted his awareness of mortality and his poetic mission. Lee's findings suggested further comparative research on how Keats and his contemporaries approached the idea of legacy. So according to Lee, the full consciousness and awareness of Keats to the reality of mortals made him aspire for immortality through legacy. Since immortal cannot avoid death, Keats hoped to transcend his lifetime through a legacy, which I believe he succeeded because up until now, years after his death, he remains alive through his poems like what we are analyzing now, the Ode to a Nightingale. So we have here another stanza. Fade far away, dissolve and quiet forget. What thou among the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. So in this stanza, we can see how Keats reflected on mortality. Words such as fade, youth grows pale, beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, show Keats' melancholic reflection on mortality. So going back to our story about Nobel earlier, John Keats also transcend time through his legacy achieved through poetry. The big question now is, how do you want to be remembered? And what's your plan in achieving your legacy, which will make you remembered even years after passing from this world? So I leave it with you that question to reflect. And these are our references. Thank you so much for listening.